whispered logic puzzles. Thank you for joining me. I'm Andrea, and I'm going to continue on the Mosaic in the Pictopix app. The second mosaic, we're going to start the second row. So again, it's a 15 by 15 mosaic portion of a nonogram. Let's see. I think I'm going to start on the bottom. I have a 9 and a 5, which makes 14, plus the X in between makes 15. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, X, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And now for each one along the bottom, I can do the bottom portion of the column. This column ends in a 4. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, and X. The second column ends in 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and X. This column ends in 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and X. This column ends in 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and X. This column ends in 2. X. This column ends in 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and X. This column ends in 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and X. This column ends in 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and X. This column ends in 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and X. This column ends in 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and X. This column ends in 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and X. This column ends in 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and X. This column ends in 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, this row is 15. I've got all but one, so I'll put that one right there. This row is 4 and 10. I've got the 4. The 10 is complete except for this one. And again, a 15. I only need 2 more, so we'll go 1, 2. Okay, now this row is complete. And this row is complete. Alright, so let's see. In this column, the next thing I'll have is an 8. If it starts at the beginning, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If it were to start at the end, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the last one will be either at the top or the bottom. But now I can look at the first one in each of these rows. The first section is 2, so I'll have 1, 2, X. This first section is 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and X. The first section in this row is 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and an X. The first section in this row is 2, so 1, 2, X. First section in this row is 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and an X. First section in this row is 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and an X. First section in this row is 1, so I'll put an X. We're going to look at this second column. It has a 7 and then a 1. Well, here's 6 of the 7, so I need 1 more. And then down here I'll have the 1. since this is along the top, I can look, let's put an X here. I can look down, so this row column starts with a 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That column is complete. This column starts with a 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This column starts with a 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and an X. This column starts with a 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and an X. This column starts with a 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then an X. This column starts with a 1, then an X, and then here's the beginning of the next portion, which is 2. 1, 2, and then an X. I'm going to go back on this row because I see I have the section 2 and the section 4. This is part of 3. 1, 2, 3, X. Okay. And I see in this column is now complete. So let's fill in the X's. In this column I have a 1 and then a 4. Well, this has to be a part of the 4, and there's room for a 1 and an X. So go 1, X, 1, 2, 3, 4, and fill in with X's. In this row I have the individual one, which is the end. So I can put X's to the end. And then I'll put the 2 in here. 1, 2. In this column, this is part of a 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. In this column, this is a 1, so I'll put an X. And now I'm going to look at the row. This first part is part of a 2, and then this is a 1. So I have the 1, 2, and I can fill in the rest of this row with X's. And this column, I can see that this is part of a 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's see, this row, there's a 1 and then a 1 and then 5. This whole section is 5, so it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then this row is complete. This row is complete. Okay. This row only has a 3 left, and there's only 3 spots. I'll do 1, 2, 3. If we look in this column, for this top section of 5, there's a 2 and a 2, which makes 4, and the X in between will be 5. So it'll be 1, 2, X, 1, 2. Okay, so this row is complete. This row is complete. This row ends with a 2. 1, 2, X. This column begins with 2, so this puzzle, I'm going to start along the bottom because I have the whole row. Go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Okay, this first column ends in 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and X. This column ends in 3. 1, 2, 3, and X. This column ends in 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and X. This column ends in 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then an X. This column has 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, This column has 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. This column ends in 2. 1, 2, X. This column ends in 2. 1, 2, X. This column has 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and an X. This column ends in 2. 1, 2, and X. This column ends in 2. 1, 2, and X. This column has a 12 in it, and that's all the spaces left. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This column starts in 12, and that's all the spaces left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This column starts in 12, and that's all the spaces I have left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, columns that I just was filling in. This one, it's a 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and an X. This column is a 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then an X. This row is complete. This row has a 13, which is only missing 2 squares, so I'll do 1, 2. I can put an X at the front. This row ends in 12, which has all but 2 squares, so I'll do 1, 2. This row ends in 11, which has all but 2 squares, so do 1, 2. This row ends in 10, which has all but 2 squares, so do 1, 2. This row ends in 10, which has all but 2 squares, do 1, 2. This row I have the 2 at the end, and then the 6, which has all but 2 squares, so do 1, 2. Okay, looking at this first row, I have 4 squares left. I have a 2 and a 1, which makes 3, and the X in between makes 4. So 1, 2, X, 1, and this row has 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now these 2, I don't know where they are yet, so I'm going to look from the top. This column starts with 2, then has another 2 with an X in between, which makes 5. There's the first 2, and I'll do X. And 1, 2, which finishes this row. This column has 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Finishes this row. This column has 2, which is 1, 2. And there we go with the second in here. Alright, let's do one more. Okay, when I look at this, I see this first column has a 12, and then a 2, which makes 14, and the X in between makes 15. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the first column. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then an X, and 1, 2. Okay, this first row is 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, starts with 12 and then has a 2, which makes 14, and the x in between makes 15. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, X, 1, 2. This row has an 11 plus 3, which is 14, plus X is 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then an X. 1, 2, 3. This row has a 10 plus a 4, which is 14, plus the X in between is 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then an X. 1, 2, 3, 4. This row has a 9 and then a 5, which makes 14, and the X in between makes 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, X. 1, This has a 2 and then a 5 and a 6. The 2 plus 5 is 7. 7 plus 6 is 13. The x here makes 14. The x here makes 15. So I'll have 1, 2, x, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, x, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This row starts with a 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then an X. This row starts with 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then an X. This row starts with 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then an X. This row starts with 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then an X. This row starts with 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. This column is complete, so I'll put X. This column is complete, so I'll put an X. This column is complete, so I'll put an X. This column is complete, so I'll put an X. This column is complete, so I'll put an X. This column starts with 12. There's only 1 missing, so I'll put 1. And now it's complete, so I'll put an X. Now down here I forgot this X at the end of the 7. Okay, so this row, I just started the next section, which is 7. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then an X, and then it has 1 to finish off. Okay, so this column is complete. So put an X. This column is complete. This column I started with 5, and now there's a second 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then an X, and then I see it ends with 2. So 1, 2. Okay, this column after the 4, it has 7.